The Timeshift.
Hello and welcome to The Timeshift. This week we're looking at the latest episode of Doctor Who entitled The Lie of the Land, which is of course a play on the term The Lay of the Land, which just goes to show what a wonderful writer this week's episode had had. Now once again we are joined by the monks, as they as always are guiding over proceedings to ensure that you dear viewer get only the greatest experience possible. Now this video is going to be spoiler heavy, so if you have not seen this week's episode of Doctor Who, it's best switch this video off now to avoid any kind of disappointment though. With an episode like this week's, there's no disappointment to be had whatsoever, as this week's episode is pure brilliance from start to finish. So, as always, let us dive headfirst into the lie of the land. Oh, thank goodness, we're back into normal times. The evil space monks have gone back up into space again. They're floating away because their evil plan has been scuppered, all thanks to the power of love. It was really difficult getting rid of them. I had to plug myself into that strange MacGuffin. I just plugged myself into it and started to think of my favouriteest Doctor Who character ever. Poor Pete. Okay, so on to this week's episode, and, well, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I knew that this week's episode was going to be a pain in my arsehole. I knew that it was going to be fairly insubstantial. I knew that it was going to be an episode which wasn't going to be worth a damn, that it was going to be anticlimactic, that it wasn't going to be as good as last week's episode, and ta-da! It was. It was exactly that. It was an episode which, at the end of the day, was created seemingly just for the sake of the trailer and nothing else. Okay, you yourself may disagree with me. By all means, leave a comment in whichever website you're watching this on. But for me personally, I found this week's episode to be totally incidental. An episode which I am kind of staggered that this is the episode that we use to justify having a three-parter. It is an episode which doesn't really seem to have any kind of tonal or thematic link between the previous 2 weeks' episodes, though. With that said, I dare say that the first episode in this fucking trilogy had no point in being a trilogy at all, or even being in a two-parter, but we'll discuss that in due course. It is an episode which, aside from that one scene with the Doctor and Bill within it, it was totally without any substance. Okay, maybe that is me being harsh, but what really was there? What was there in this episode? Now, I hate to do a comparison with last week's and this week's, but I'm going to have to because they're part of a fucking trilogy. Last week's episode was an episode where you could take in either one of two ways, or both ways if you really wanted to. You could either take it as being yet another exciting episode with the Doctor where he sees some creepy aliens and he saves the day. Or he didn't, but he probably would have done had it being a standalone episode. Or alternatively, you could have taken it as being an episode which has a little bit more of a motive and idea behind it. That is an idea that is politically motivated with a thing it wants to say. And it was one which said it in a very, very fantastic way, in a way which I am still flabbergasted that that was an episode written by Peter Harness, but I'm getting ever so slightly distracted here. Last week's episode was, as I say, an episode that you could either take it as being an exciting adventure or something a little bit more serious, a little bit more thoughtful. Or you could take it as being both, either or none. This week's is an episode where it isn't an exciting Doctor Who adventure. It doesn't really do anything which is at all exciting, and it isn't really at all politically motivated. There is no greater moral message behind it aside from the fake news bit. Aside from that, there's nothing really else to it that adds any kind of depth or substantiance to it. And I know that probably isn't a word, but forgive me. It is an episode which, like I say, seems to be built entirely around the scene of the Doctor going bah! While he's having the fake regeneration bit. And I was so bloody pissed off at that scene after we had the ha ha ha! It was just a prank, brah!
Yeah.
As soon as we had that bit, I was just, oh fuck me, oh fuck me, oh fuck you, fuck you. Oh my god! That entire scene up until that moment was getting to a point where we were onto something there. We were seriously onto something fantastic had it gone the way that it was seemingly going. This is yet another moment in the Stephen Moffat run of Doctor Who, and I know this isn't an episode written by him, but again, this is a moment where we have a very fantastic scene, a great concept, a great setup, that, had it gone the way that we thought it was going to go, would have been one of those, oh my fucking it's a fantastic moment in Doctor Who history bit. The kind of bit that the fanboys with the replica sonic screwdrivers and the crappy Tom Baker scarves would start to have nerdgasms over when they do their top 10 greatest Doctor Who moments in the new series. Oh! Bit. As soon as we got to those countdowns, that would have been a moment included in it. As the idea of the companion becoming disillusioned by the actions of the Doctor, my God, that would have been a great way. Bill leaves the show because the Doctor takes a path, decides to do something that she does not agree with. He decides to throw his lot in with the monks, not because of mind control, but because he genuinely believes that what they're doing is ultimately good for the human race. But she cannot see that as being the case, so she takes action that she thinks is appropriate. And that entire scene, the idea of the companion killing the Doctor to either save them from something, or alternatively because they are so shocked with what the Doctor is doing, had it been done straight, would have been a fantastic moment. It would have been one of those moments what they were talking about in years to come as iconic moments within the new run of Doctor Who. Or it's much like that moment towards the end of Kill the Moon where Clara is having a bitch fit at the Doctor for making her decide whether or not to exterminate the human race. You know, making her believe that whatever decision she's going to pick is going to be a fucked if you do, fucked if you don't thing. That would have been a great way for her to leave the show. Of course she didn't, and in the end we had her disappearing off into Simon Space to have Mary Sue adventures with a shielder. Oh my God, she can't fucking act a shielder. Instead we got a moment, as with this week, where Bill had a great fantastic moment. We had a great fantastic scene that, had it been taken at face value, would have been something iconic and memorable. But at the end of the day, it just bows down into just a prank, brah, and we move on from there. A moment which exists purely and simply for the trailer and nothing else. And I can't give this episode any credit for that scene now. Had that scene ended in a different way, maybe the Doctor did snap out of his mind control bit. Or maybe the regeneration was somehow... I don't know. That scene was ruined. I'm sorry. I can't think of another way to say it. But that one good scene in this week's episode was buggered up. And this is a three-parter, which really shouldn't have been a three-parter. Okay, the performance section. Anybody stand out to me as being great or good? Well, aside from Peter Capaldi, Pearl Mackie, Michelle Gomez, and Matt Lucas all being great and good and fantastic as always, they're all good. They're all great. And the extras did their job fine enough. So, yeah, that's it. Performances. Nothing else to say. This is... my God. And now the overview. And the more eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that the lighting has changed, as well as my position, the position of the camera. The fact I look a little bit more tired, dishevelled and pissed off that I did in the previous link. Well, there's a good reason for that. Turns out the overview for this week's episode is almost totally unusable. About halfway through, the sound unsyncs, it starts to pause and jitter and jerk about, and it would take too long to edit. So I'm just going to re-record it. I'm just going to do it now, off the cuff, without my notes in front of me. All I'm going to say is that this week's episode was a massive disappointment. It is an episode which, despite the promise of the previous two episodes, did nothing to really live up to it. It was anticlimax. It's one which didn't feel as though it shared any real link to the previous 2 weeks' episodes. Now, the reason why this is the case is that I don't believe that these 3 episodes should ever have been part of a 3-parter, both in terms of my own personal appreciation of those 3 episodes, but also the fact that it doesn't feel as though at any point during the creation of these 3 episodes did the 4 writers involved with making these episodes ever sat round in a room together and said, right, here's the story, this is how we're going to do it. There was no discussion, there was no planning, there was no writer's room. It just feels as though Stephen Moffat found these 3 episodes and thought to himself, hey, let's make them a 3-parter. And as a result, we have 3 episodes which are, well, I wouldn't say they were wildly varying in tone, but you have a first episode which is darker and creepy, has kind of more existential dread to it, far to existential dread as you can get with a family television programme. Then you have the second episode, which is a little bit more politically motivated, a little bit more lofty, a little bit more closer to, I dare say, the classic idea of science fiction to include political, socio-political elements within it, in addition to the wild and exciting science fiction adventure side of things. And you have this final episode, which is almost entirely built for the trailer and nothing else. 3 episodes which don't feel as though they should have been put together. I dare say that this third and final episode was never intended to be a Doctor Who episode full stop. Unlike the previous 2, which feel as though they were retrofitted to create a trilogy, I feel that this one was written just for the sake of it, this trilogy having an ending, having a conclusion, where in reality this week's episode could have just been attached to last week's. Make last week's episode longer, or cut some of the material out of it. Cut out all these silly moments with the scientists, add in the build up to the confrontation between Bill and the Doctor, then maybe have that scene happening with the mind control area in the alien pyramid thing, and then you would have a complete episode with a great build up, a great emotional impact to it. That scene, once again, I dare say, has been squandered, has been ruined. A great and fantastic moment, one which would be creative and thought out, one which transcends both Doctor Who and this BBC drama kids television programme, and becomes something that would be something that, had people actually seen this episode, would have been considered a great moment in television history. Okay, maybe I'm being a little bit lofty here, maybe I'm giving that scene credit that it really doesn't deserve, but in the context of Doctor Who, having a companion killing the Doctor because they're so shocked at what they have become, or at least just killing them so as to save them, would have been a moment which people would have been talking about for years to come. Whilst I did say that snidely in the previous link about Doctor Who fanboys jizzing over the idea of, oh, it's so emotional, it has such depth to it, oh, it's so grown up. Within this, it still would have been a remarkable moment, a moment that would have lived on within this period of Doctor Who history, but it isn't. From the viewing figures that I've seen over the past couple of days in light of it, the actual viewing figures that people that saw Saturday's episode is, if I'm correct in thinking this, the lowest viewing figures of the new run of Doctor Who, and possibly the lowest viewing figures in the history of Doctor Who. It barely made it over 3 million, which I dare say says leaps and bounds for the quality of this week's episode. I don't imagine that many people are going to be watching this on demand. It may in due course, in a few weeks' time, make it up to 5 million, maybe. But when you get to this kind of area, it's starting to border class levels in terms of viewing figures. I know that we're talking more of the mechanics and the business side of things of Doctor Who, but we have to bear in mind that, as always, Doctor Who is one of those programmes where its success, whether or not it gets commissioned for future series, depends on the viewing figures. Of course, it has been confirmed that the series is going to be going on for another 5 series or so, so at least we have that to be thankful for. It's going to be going forward to at least the 60th anniversary, so great, fantastic, good, but we shouldn't take that as for granted. We should still expect our quality episodes of Doctor Who, regardless of whom they are by, regardless of who the showrunner is, and regardless of whether or not they've been retrofitted into a 3-parter or not. This 3-parter should never have been a 3-parter, as at no point does it feel as though the events of any particular episode have an impact upon the one after it. Of course, that is kind of not entirely the case with the second and third episode, as the third episode takes place almost immediately after it, but the adventure in the virtual world that the Doctor had in the first episode of this 3-parter, it really hasn't had any impact upon what happened in the second or even the third. The only 2 episodes that ever had any kind of real link towards them, any kind of connection between the 2 of them, were the second and the third one. So at most this really should have been a 2-parter, because at least then it would have felt as though, well, there's a little bit more of a link between them. But it wasn't. So, in the end, we get a 3-parter that shouldn't have been a 3-parter, that the episodes themselves don't really feel as though they're building up to anything, or rather that what they did build up to was something that was dramatically uninteresting to me. Of course, you yourself may disagree. By all means, leave me a comment in whichever website you're watching this on, and let me know whether you loved it, whether you hated it, whether you're indifferent about it. Let me know and you'll be read out on the show. Speaking of which, it's time for the comment section, and I'm going to remember to do it this week. Yay! It's another comment from MetroCop. Yes, we're going back there. And the comment is by S2, who says, alternate universe confirmed. Only it wasn't an alternative universe. It was the exact same universe. A universe which is no different to the one that we left. It's the exact same one that which we started in. The whole world-altering events that the monks brought in were purely mind control. And despite the fact that people have been sent to re-education camps, probably have been killed, murdered and otherwise spirited away, everybody's forgotten about it. So now all those people waking up in these re-education camps, all the people that have discovered that their loved ones have been injured, murdered and all round done horrible things to, and I'm just going to shrug the shoulders and go, I thought they were making a movie. Oh dear, what's that? Uncle Phil is now paralysed from the neck down. What an odd turn of events. I wonder how that happened. And, my God, Auntie Marjorie's in a re-education camp. I wonder what she's doing in there. Was she taking place in a movie? No, she has no memory of why she got there. And all those other thousands of people that were in there. In fact, there's re-education camps all around the planet. Re-educating people for what? Either something horrible and nasty has just happened that somehow we've all forgotten and we should probably be very concerned about, or it's viral marketing for some kind of movie. Oh, they're wearing brightly coloured uniforms. Obviously, these internment camps were just viral marketing for the Emoji Movie coming this summer, you cunts. That was the comment section. I have nothing else to say. I'm horribly disappointed with this week's episode. It achieved nothing. It did nothing. And I dare say it kind of damaged the quality of last week's episode. I still can't get over just how good that first episode was. Or rather, that second one was. The first one wasn't bad either. It's just one of those episodes where at the end of the day, it kind of didn't work when you started to say the core principles of it out loud. The Doctor discovering a virtual world that he's in, emailing the Doctor what's happening and how to defeat the aliens, and then it having no impact upon the episode where he has to defeat the aliens. And then at the end of the day, everything that was set up and planned, it's just the power of love that saved the day in the end. Really, really disappointing. Next week, we've got Doctor meeting the Ice Warriors, meets the Praetorian Guard from Warhammer 40,000. Oh, it's steampunky. Oh, it's British Empire in space. You know, in my writing course, there was a guy on it that came up with this really great, fantastic idea for a science fiction universe with steampunky elements, which was British Empire in space. And he's just a student. And what little I've read of his script was fantastic and brilliant. I wonder if an unprofessional, unqualified, having no real qualifications whatsoever, with no history in the industry at all, I wonder if his script is going to be better than the professional writer. We'll soon find out next week. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye!